Well, it's time to have another prom watch. With me is Tim Baker, a man who's been very busy. This has been a long time trying to get hold of you. I should say, when we're recording this, we're literally having another press conference at 6 tonight, and you can't disclose that.
That's right.
What's going on?
Yeah.
But with that out of the way, let's just deal with today. And obviously, we are actually talking about the last lockdown. I mean, things came to another halt.
Yes.
Things now are going to be missing again on your next date, which was June, wasn't it?
So yeah, you're right, Paul. The lockdown. The decision was to close construction, close all the outdoor trades as part of the short, sharp response. Which the lockdown did work. We came through that, and it was broadly as expected. But clearly that's had an impact. I mean, we had to say to Alding Construction to stop work on the prom, and the DOI team stopped work on the proms, and that was fine. But it did have an impact. So we were at the end of June as the completion date. We're now at the end of July, which is regrettable. But I can't have any criticism of the contractor for that. If we say you can't work, you can't work. They had to comply with that, and sometimes it's in the greater good that you have to do these things. So, they're now back. They're operating. There's progress being made, and there's we're working to that July date.
Another big thing is the Kirby rails. I mean, I saw them. I must have some of them being pulled up. That's some weeks ago, but we haven't had chat since then. Is it a fault on the actual rails or something as it's been reported?
It absolutely seems to be. There's investigations going on, but I mean the bottom line is that's a matter for the contractor. They supplied them, they procured them through their own supply chain. Whether there's any fault back down their supply chain is for them to worry about, not us. They need to replace them. They need to stand the cost of that with their suppliers if appropriate, and they need to get them reinstalled. The good news is that that's all possible. There is available stock for them to do that, and the work can be programmed in without affecting the critical path of the overall project. So clearly it's regrettable. Clearly you do have issues on schemes like this, but the important message to the public of the Isle of Man is that's a matter for the contractor and for their suppliers, and isn't an additional concern.
I just think how many times we've talked about the problems on the prom, and it comes back so many times to the rails. You must be frustrated that, like most of the public are. I mean, without that, it probably would be well underway, wouldn't it?
There's been a lot of elements to it. To be fair, I wouldn't want to point it all at the rails. I mean, the rails are a discrete element. They're a very emotive element, and you'll have heard, as I did, Paul, the amount of comment about the horse trams in what was the budget discussion over the last couple of days. But this has been a complex project. There's been a lot of issues with the services in particular. I think if I was to analyse it, I would say that most of the issues have been under the ground to do with the services, but there's been some very public issues around the issue you just talked about there with the cracking, and obviously the pink concrete that had a cracking issue and still has that to be finally resolved. We've had a proposal from the contractors. We've looked at that and said that that's not acceptable because visually it was not to the right standard. It did the job functionally, so it sealed the cracks and stopped any structural damage, but it's really important that when this job is finished it looks the part, so we've told the contractor to go back and look again, and they are doing, and I'm aware that they've already come up with one other alternative at least, so again that's work in progress.
Is it fraught then, the sort of relationship you have between you and the contractors these days?
It's not. I wouldn't say it was fraught. I mean,
it's a little touchy maybe then.
I think inevitably, this is a long-term project. It's been difficult. Clearly, we've got an expectation of them to deliver, both in terms of time and cost. There are some factors that are outside their control, which are known as compensation events. So whether that's the specs changed or the ground conditions were different, those are legitimate things that affect the cost and the time, and they're just part of managing the contract. There are some issues which perhaps the contractor is accountable for, like the rails, like the concrete cracking. I've met the contractor a couple of weeks ago, and there's a programme of at the political level meeting monthly, and obviously operationally there's day-to-day interaction. I wouldn't say the relationship's fraught, but at the end of the day the contractor has to deliver the scheme, but they have to be mindful of the impact on their own business and their own finances, and clearly we have to have the scheme delivered, and we have to be mindful of the cost that the taxpayers picking up.
I mean, you took back all the drives and all the sides of that. How are you getting on with your bit? Are you on target?
Yeah, that's progressing well. I mean, that's a separate resource. It's out of the scope of the
Paul
main.
thinks some other places have, has it, to do that?
Yeah, inevitably. I mean, the teams that are deployed on those elements of the project would have been doing other things, but clearly we've got to get this job done. We've set out to get it done before the tourists come. We're going
to get tourists?
Well, I would hope, but that's not in my control. I mean, that's one thing that the DOI isn't responsible for. But my team is fully focused on getting this prom project finished to a good standard, and to get the tourist economy given the chance to flourish as soon as the wider conditions allow that, which was why we did what we did last summer to de-scope the project and to get it finished before the tourists came. We were then working for June. We're now working to July, but it does look as though the tourist season, to the extent that we get it, is going to come later next year. So,
and subject to any more lockdowns, I say we're literally recording this on a day that you know what's happening, but we don't, the public, yet until 6. You've got a definite date in July, have you? I mean, or you just putting a rough date? Because we've done that so many times now, haven't we?
The end of July is the date, so that's the 31st.
Yeah.
I mean, if the contractor can deliver it early, that would be fantastic. But that's
ribbon cutting, the whole bit.
I'm not worried about that. I just want to see people on the prom
enjoying
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether what's emerged today affects the timescales, I would hope not, actually, because it was very much precautionary last time to take construction to tell it to stop. It was obviously. I think the public health advice has been that the outdoor trades have a lower risk, and clearly there's a balance in all this. We can lock everything down and absolutely minimise the risk, but that has a wider consequence to society, to the economy, and I would be hopeful that construction can carry on.
We'll take that as a hint.
Well, no, I mean genuinely, those decisions have not been made. We're back in as council later on this afternoon, ahead of the press conference tonight. So,
is that why you put that to 6? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. While we're talking about roads, how's Richmond Hill? Because that's reared its ugly head again about contractors and the hoo-ha. Is this a litigation as well on this one?
I would hope not. Again, it's a similar contractor relationship. It's part of the Colas group. Obviously,
it's a long time though since we talked about this. I mean, the surface is rubbish, isn't it? I mean, it's not good, and we've gone through another winter.
No, exactly. And there's been some information out in the public domain, which is old information. To be fair, nothing's really changed. It needs fixing. The contractor needs to fix it, and the solution needs to be defined and then implemented, and so nothing really new to say on that.
Well, yeah, but you haven't got an agreement. It hasn't been done. I mean, it's gone on for a long time. So
it has gone on for a long time.
Come on now, you've got to be banging some heads here, haven't you?
It needs sorting.
Yeah.
The hill is actually it's functional. It's working now. So
it is, but it's not quite as it's meant to be, is it? I mean,
no, it's not.
And ready in places.
It's not, and there's a lot of things like that, and it's about where do you have your battles. For me. If it would be a different kettle of fish if traffic was being diverted, if the public were being inconvenienced. In reality, it's unfinished business. It needs to be finished. But actually, day to day, people are just going about their business. Yeah. Whereas the prom absolutely does need to finish. Yeah. Does need to finish. And it's impacting residents. It's impacting businesses, and it'll impact the tourists. If we don't get it done before they come back. How
did you manage with all the snow and everything? Because I mean, that freezing and the thing causes more. I mean, we are in pothole everywhere. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad recipe. It creates potholes. It did have an impact on work on the prom. You can't lay concrete. You can't lay blocks if the temperature's not at the right level. Tarmac, etc. So. It did have an impact on those operations, but there's an element of that that's anticipated. Everybody knows what the weather's like in the winter in the Isle of Man. The contractor is at risk unless we get to extremes of temperature. So if we had a real out of the ballpark sort of weather event, then fine, they might have a claim on that. But if it's just normal winter, as that was, that's just part of the ups and downs of the contract. And again, they need to work around that. In terms of day-to-day stuff, yes. I mean, you saw potholes appearing on the mountain road. It's unhelpful, but we've got what we've got. You're always going to have potholes in the same way as there's always going to be ill people in the health service.
Were you gritting enough? There's always that thing, getting the gritters out and the cost that incurs. Do you think you did it okay this year?
I mean, you've always got to. Well, no. If I say it's okay, then people will say we're complacent. We're not complacent.
Yeah.
We try and make the best decisions we can in the light of the available information, and it's a real challenge for the Met Office to be precise in their definition of exactly where the snow is going to fall and when it's going to fall.
Yeah.
If you're a mile or two out in your estimations, here it's a major issue. If you're in the northwest of England or the North Yorkshire or wherever, actually you just sort of say, well, there's going to be snow in the Sheffield area or the Manchester area, and you're accurate. Here, if you get it one road out, people sort of say, well, you got it wrong. What I was really pleased about was that we were proactive. Going back to the last weekend, the mountain road was closed. It was publicised in
you close it all the time, though, don't you? Now, I mean, it seems like it's. I mean, don't bother gritting. Let's just close it. I mean, it saves money as well, I suppose.
There's a balance to be had. I mean, the department does want to keep the roads open, but equally, you've got to reflect the reality of the situation as well, and try and make the right balanced judgments. So
we had loads catch up on this time. Something, and I don't think we can say much because I'm sure the police investigation is continuing, but there has been this obviously very sad incident on the connection between Douglas and Peel on the cycleway.
Trail. No, very sad incident, and obviously thoughts go out to the families involved.
Changed things, haven't you?
There have been some changes made retrospectively. Yeah. That absolutely is not linked to any findings of the police investigation. I don't know what the police have found. I've had no conversation about that, nor should I have. No. I am aware that the police are involved in the situation. My team have had a look at the junction where the cycleway crosses the road, and as has been reported in the press, there have been some modifications made. There should be no conclusions drawn from that, but clearly it's right to try and make sure that we look at things afresh, and that's what's happened here. But absolutely no comment at all on the details of that incident, other than to obviously express my condolences to the families involved.
Well, we'll try and catch you next month. It's been you're a very difficult man to. We'll put you in a pot or something. We'll go and have a look. Hopefully, I mean, the end is nigh almost. I mean, we're coming out of winter.
We're now beyond the middle of February. 31st of July is coming quickly. The great thing is the people are working hard. The progress is being made. I want the job done. We all want the job done. It's going to be great when it's finished, and it is going to be a fantastic legacy for the long term for the island.